Hello, I'm C.W. Smith, Jackson County Commissioner. On behalf of Oregon's ONC counties, I'd like to invite you to watch the story of our unique ONC forest lands. You know, these lands are only located in the 18 western Oregon counties that stretch from the Columbia River to the California border. This property isn't part of any county's tax base, yet the ONC lands are still considered vital for the continued success of the 18 Oregon counties. How did things get this way? Well, that's just what we're going to find out.
Hello, I'm Steve Carlson, and welcome to the History of the ONC Lands, or Saving Oregon's Future. President Thomas Jefferson had a grand vision, expanding the United States across the North American continent. He called upon Meriwether Lewis and William Clark to lead an expedition that would catalog and quantify all the land that stretched from the Mississippi River to the Pacific Ocean.
For a time when no man has seen these sights, but that's all changed.
Yep, we're the first, but we won't be the last.
Did you ever think it would be this beautiful?
Not in my wildest dreams.
The success of their journey set off the westward expansion of the fledgling American nation that Jefferson had envisioned. Westward expansion in the 1800s was an unstoppable tide, encouraged by policies that supported development of transportation routes. Railroad construction across the Great Plains and the Rocky Mountains was subsidized by land grants in exchange for the building of railroads that served military purposes as well as economic development. By the 1860s, most of the east-west routes were completed, and attention was turned to linking the lines with the north-south route through Oregon. In the 1860s, the federal government granted rights to about 4 million acres of forest land in western Oregon to the Oregon and California Railroad Company, also known as the ONC Railroad, in exchange for the construction of a railroad from Portland to the California border.
You men get this track laid by sunset, you hear? Yes, sir. We're already 3 days behind schedule, can't lose any more time.
There ain't nobody who can lay track as fast as us, sir. We'll make it up.
See that you do.
The legislation came with some restrictions that 45 years later were the undoing of the grant. As the rail line was constructed, the ONC Railroad earned the right to alternating sections of land in a strip 20 miles wide on each side of the rail line. This resulted in a checkerboard pattern of public land being transferred to private ownership. The railroad company was then required by Congress to offer the grant lands for sale, but only to actual settlers, in parcels no greater than 160 acres and for prices not to exceed $2.50 an acre.
Is this really our land, Mama?
As far as the eye can see, honey.
Can we really live here?
Yes, we can.
These terms were intended to encourage settlement and development, while adequately compensating the ONC Railroad for its construction costs. Construction proceeded sporadically, finally finishing in 1887, only after the financially troubled ONC Railroad was absorbed into the larger Southern Pacific Railroad. Before the railroad was even finished, land fraud of many types sprang up. One scam had fraudulent settlers rounded up from various saloons near Portland's wharves to sign forged applications to purchase 160-acre parcels of ONC lands, which were then transferred to corrupt middlemen and consolidated into large blocks held by corporate interests.
Now you fellas, you better listen up. We're going to take you all down to the land office, and all you got to do is sign some land deeds, that's all.
Oh, I can't read or write my name.
That's all right, just make him mark, that's all.
Hey, what do we get out of this deal?
You get you a bottle of whiskey. And if you keep asking me questions, you get nothing. Oh, come on.
Oh, what about me?
Oh, come on.
And that was just the tip of the iceberg. The Southern Pacific Railroad eventually sold lands far in excess of the 160-acre parcels for amounts exceeding the $2.50 limit. In one case, for $40 an acre. By 1902, the value of the remaining lands had increased dramatically, and the railroad company brazenly declared that it would make no more land sales. By 1904, the O&C scandal had grown so large that the Portland Oregonian reported that more than 3/4 of O&C land sales had violated federal law. Newly elected President Theodore Roosevelt vowed in 1903 to clean up the O&C land fraud mess once and for all.
Sit down. Now what I want from you two is to get the real story behind the land fraud. I want names. Hear me? Names!
We'll get you the whole story, Mr. President.
We'll get you the evidence. Got enough of this O&C land fraud mess. I want it cleaned up once and for all. It's dogged me long enough.
We won't let you down, sir.
It took 2 years, but Roosevelt's investigators got all the evidence needed. Over 1,000 politicians, businessmen, railroad executives, and others were indicted, and many were eventually tried and convicted for fraud, bribery, and other corruption charges. The government also took action to recover the grant lands that remained in the hands of the Southern Pacific Railroad, over 2 million acres. The Supreme Court decided in 1915 that the grant terms had been violated, but the railroad had been built as promised, so the railroad company shouldn't be forced to completely forfeit the lands. Congress responded in 1916 with a solution that took back the lands, but gave the railroad the equivalent of what it would have received had it sold the original grant lands for $2.50 per acre. That meant that over 2 million acres went out of private ownership and back into federal ownership. These lands, in a mostly checkerboard pattern, are known as the O&C lands today. Lands owned by the federal government pay no property taxes. So when the federal government took back the O&C lands, 18 affected Oregon counties lost the right to tax the more than 2 million acres. Between 1916 and 1936, Congress tried twice to provide a long-term solution, failing each time. In 1937, Congress tried a third time and succeeded. Under the O&C Act of 1937, still in use today, the O&C lands were dedicated to timber production under principles of sustained yield forestry. The goal was to produce timber in perpetuity, with sales revenues shared with the counties. The O&C Act was successful for the next 50 years. Counties received half the revenue from the sale of timber, a steady revenue stream that helped pay for essential county services. The O&C timber reliably supplied mills that employed tens of thousands with family wage jobs. The O&C lands are not national forests. The Bureau of Land Management manages O&C lands, while the Forest Service manages the national forests. O&C lands are primarily for timber production, while the national forests are managed for multiple uses, with no use having priority over the others. Revenues from O&C timber is shared 50% with the counties, while just 25% of revenue from national forest timber is shared with the various communities. Perhaps the most significant difference is this. The 25% revenues from national forests can be spent only on roads and schools. The O&C revenues go into a county's general fund and can be spent on whatever is most needed by the county. Public safety, health and social services, corrections, libraries, senior programs, whatever is needed. In some of the 18 ONC counties, more than 50% of the general fund budget is supplied by ONC revenue. The ONC revenues are truly an essential component of community stability in Western Oregon. From the early 1980s and into the 1990s, global economic conditions and environmental concerns severely affected timber production, and revenues shared with the counties collapsed. Congress provided a series of temporary safety net payment programs. The most recent safety net program is scheduled to end in September of 2006, and counties are working diligently to get Congress to extend the program for a few more years.
Meanwhile, the Bureau of Land Management is working on new plans for the ONC forests. These new plans are intended to resume reasonable timber production so the revenues can be produced to help communities, but to do so in ways that will better protect the environment and wildlife.
If safety net payments end before timber harvests are restored, counties will be required to slash programs and services. No one wants to face having to close libraries and health clinics and lay off sheriff's deputies and other county employees, but these are the realities that would confront us. Federal legislatures, county leaders, and concerned citizens are all still grappling with the challenge of what to do with the ONC lands. The ideal solution would fund county government, provide a long-lasting timber supply while protecting wildlife and the environment, contribute to the economic stability of local communities and industries, and provide recreational opportunities for all. Public awareness of the economic contribution these lands have made to our counties and communities is critical to making wise choices for the future.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed this history of one of Oregon's most precious resources, the ONC lands. New generations of Oregonians are enjoying the economic, social, recreational, and ecological benefits of this beautiful state. ONC lands enhance that experience with undiscovered treasures yet to be appreciated. Thank you.